quick recap over lesson 1.1 as we were talking about what exactly is economics. And we had said that economics is just the study of decision making. But what we did is we explored why we had to make these decisions. And we said really the reason for us having to make decisions all boils down to just one word, and that word is scarcity, right? So we had this flow chart that we took a look at, and we said when we have scarcity, when we have way more things than we want than we're able to get, what we have to do is we have to make decisions. But remember, like we said too, every single decision we make has a cost, and that cost might not be a monetary cost. Oftentimes, that cost is actually an opportunity cost, the cost of us doing something, like the example of you studying instead of hanging out with your friends. You giving up the opportunity to hang out with your friends every time you add more study time. And so this is kind of just this simple flow that's defining how economics works. Now, scarcity, we said, is that problem that all societies are facing when they're producing goods or services. They have to decide how are we going to use these scarce resources to make as many goods as services possible in order to satisfy people's wants and needs. Now, this isn't the only place we see scarcity. We see similar examples as we're talking about just the lives of individuals. And so today we're going to look at our very first economic model. It's the production possibilities curve. And what we want to do is we want to look at this model and better understand how we make choices. But at the same time, we're going to introduce this with kind of like a simpler version of it, maybe a way that we could better understand. So let's suppose that you've got some back to school shopping to do, and your parents said, hey, you need more shoes, you need more shirts, and so here's $240. We want you to go buy either shoes or shirts. And just to make things easy, let's say every shirt costs you $30 and every pair of shoes costs you $60. Let's think about your different options that you have. You could buy any combination of shirts and shoes. So let's kind of think on the extremes here. If you only bought shirts, you could buy 8 shirts because 30 times 8, it would spend all $240 of it. But that means you wouldn't be able to buy any shoes. Or on the other end, you could buy 4 pairs of shoes for $60 a piece, but then you wouldn't be able to buy any shirts. But are those your only options? Well, no, you could split your money somewhere in between. Maybe you bought 1 pair of shoes and 6 shirts, or 4 shirts and 2 pairs of shoes, or maybe 2 shirts and 3 pairs of shoes. Like, we have other options. But what we've done here is we've taken this chart, and we're going to take the chart and we've put a letter to each one of these different combinations. And we're going to go ahead and plot these points out on a graph and take a look and see what it looks like. So here we have our graph. We're going to put our shirts there on our y-axis. We're going to put shoes down there on the x. And we're going to plot these points. And we're going to start up in the kind of the top left area with 8 shirts and 0 shoes. So we have point A right there. And then we'll plot point B, point C, point D, and then point E. Now, this shows us all of our different possibilities. But what we're really seeing, and you guys can kind of see this just looking at it, is these points actually form a line. And what that line represents is any combination of $240 being spent, right? It doesn't matter if we're at point A, point B, C, D, or E. We're spending all the money that our parents gave us, right? Now, as we look at this, we see that every single one of those points along the curve represents us using our money in some way. Point A is $240, point E is $240, and everywhere in between, we're using all of our money. Now, let's suppose that you are walking through the store and you've just kind of been throwing things into your cart, and you get to the cash register and you notice that you have 6 shirts and 3 pairs of shoes. You place everything up at the register, and what's going to happen? Well, if we have 6 shirts times 30, that's $180, plus $60 pairs of shoes, 3 of those, that's another $180. That's $360. Are you able to buy all of those things? Well, no, you're not, because you only have $240. Any of these points that are outside of that line, all those points are unattainable. We don't have enough money to get any of those. Remember, that blue line represents us using all of our money. So anything beyond that, we don't have enough money. It costs too much. That combination of shirts and shoes, we can't afford it. So any point that is outside of that curve is unattainable. Now, what if you got up to the cash register and you looked and you said, all right, I've found everything that I like, and what we have in my cart is 2 shirts and 1 pair of shoes. Well, are you spending all $240? Well, you got two shirts at $30 a piece, so that's $60 plus another $60 pair of shoes. You've only spent half your money. You've only spent $120. Any of those points inside the curve, while it's attainable, like while we're able to achieve those, we're able to buy any of those combinations, we say it's inefficient. We're not using all of our money. Your goal was to go and purchase all these different things you needed, and you didn't use up all your money, and so we say it's inefficient. Now, this again is just kind of like a simple example of it. But I want to show you guys how this relates to opportunity cost. So let's say that you had decided upon purchasing 6 shirts and 1 pair of shoes, right? So that combination right there at point B. Now, as you're walking up to the cash register, you see another pair of shoes and you're just like, oh dang, I really like that pair of shoes. But I also really like the pair of shoes that I already have in my cart. So what do? Because here's the thing, is whenever you add 1 pair of shoes, you see we go from 1 to 2, what does that mean has to happen to the number of shirts? Well, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to go and put some shirts back. We're going to move then from point B to point C. Now, if you guys notice, we're still using all of our money. We're just using our money in a different combination. However, by adding shoes, we have to give up shirts. Our opportunity cost is shirts. We've already kind of talked about that. If we want to buy another pair of shoes, we got to give something up. And you guys saw we would have to give up 2 shirts in order to buy another pair of shoes. This idea that we have to give something else, we have to give something up in order to obtain something else, that's just known as a trade-off. You guys have probably heard that before. Like, what's the trade-off of doing one thing versus the other? But trade-offs create those opportunity costs. That idea that there is a next best alternative. In this case, whenever you purchased another pair of shoes, you had to give up purchasing 2 shirts. The opportunity cost for a second pair of shoes was 2 shirts.